Hi Ramesh, how is it going?
Hi,
Huh?
Sri.
Good
How is it
morning.
going? Good.
Good morning. Good morning. I think we're done with the SaaStr now. Been a week almost in the Bay Area. What's your feeling as a startup founder? I want to just ask Ramesh a few questions, right? Ramesh, you've been a marketer,
Yep.
been a demand side of the marketing side pretty much your life, right? Um, you you've been you've attended multiple events in the past, right? But this is probably the first major event you've attended as a startup founder,
That's true.
right? How do you feel after 3 days of hustle, doing a lot of demos, meeting a lot of people, peers, peer founders, of course VCs, a lot of people. 3 days, with
Yes.
a lot of hustle. One of the largest event I would say for the SaaS
Correct.
founders. How do you feel?
Right. So, good morning, everyone. SaaStr has been really amazing for me personally. When we landed, jet lag. SaaStr was on 10th. We landed on the 9th,
Okay.
and pretty jet lagged. Wasn't sure how I'm going to hold up during the first day at SaaStr. We went the previous day. We got our badges and so on. When we reached, uh, it was amazing. It was a huge, massive place at San Mateo County Center that was held. I was a little overwhelmed, to be very honest, because it's the first time, and so many people around. Wasn't sure how I should start. Right, there was this huge
Day one, okay.
cold start problem. Day one, there were booths. Should I just go and talk to them? How do I get leads for Highperformr? That's what was there right at the top of my head.
Right.
How do I get more leads? How do I talk to? Who should I talk to? Everyone's passing on smiles. They're looking at your badges, but how do you make that? There was definitely a cold start problem.
Okay.
When we reached, I think everyone was also busy trying to figure out what needs to be done in their respective booths as well. So I wasn't
Right.
sure if this is a great time to go and pitch Highperformr to get. I was, and we were never sponsors, so we were just attendees. So I was kind of quiet the first day, to be very honest. We just had a few conversations with people who I know, just to acclimatize myself around what was going on.
Right. Right.
Day two was pretty good. Right, we had a good night's sleep, and we hit SaaStr right in the morning. Right from the start of the day, it's fantastic to
Okay.
kind of start talking to people about what they're doing, kind of understanding the SaaS ecosystem better. What are the new kind of companies that are there, right?
Okay.
There's been I'm sure you'll talk about it, but there's been a huge amount of difference with the kind of companies that are now present from what it was last time. But it's been pretty amazing.
Amazing, right? Of course, Ramesh, like you said, new companies get to know the trend. I think it starts with the whole aspect of being able to network, right? And then once you start networking,
Yep.
right, and then you get into a more comfort zone and you start connecting with people and then
True.
start pitching and all that happens. But let's say if you just have to take a step back, right, and you wanted to kind of give, let's say, people some insights and learnings from what you've learned in the last 3 days, because I'm sure you've been researching to find out, hey, is it the right event for you?
Correct.
Right? As an early stage founder, we've been talking about it for like a few months per se. In fact, if you remember, I had asked you about 4-6 months back, hey, should we actually pick up the early bird tickets for SaaStr? But we were still speculating, figuring out whether it's the right event for us. Now, having attended this event, SaaStr, one of the largest events for startup founders, what is your takeaway? What is your learning? Is this right event for startup founders? If so, who should really target for next year?
Yeah, we dabbled with this question quite a bit, and but we just said, hey, there's got to be a start. It's okay even if it's expensive, right? To be flying across, and as a startup, you're always thinking about the cost and what we're going to get out of it.
Right.
We dabbled with the cost quite a bit, and finally we just took the plunge and said, okay, let's go. From what I've seen, 3 days immersing myself into the ecosystem, SaaS, talking to founders and all of that. For me personally, it's been great as a startup founder of a very early stage startup. For us, it makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense because you're able to talk to similar founders who are in the journey. You're able to talk to sponsors who probably have a need because they're also reasonably
in a way startups,
in a way startup, but they are startups who are probably anywhere between 2 million to a 10 million kind of
or
range, or slightly even higher. I mean, it's the entire piece. So they're also looking for new ways of generating demand and all of that. So that was good. So startup founders, it gives amazing perspective. If you've never been on the other side as a startup founder, if you come there as part of a company, it's different. But if you've been a startup founder and you want to know what's happening in the market that you want to sell, I think it's great. If you are a startup founder who's probably scaled more than, let's say, 20 million in revenue, I don't think SaaStr from a demand gen perspective makes sense. Right? If you are a speaker, that's perhaps you
imparting knowledge,
your learnings, that's great. But I also feel it could get hard to get the audience inside, because everyone over there, startup founders are like us, are walking all across networking. And they probably don't want a session right now. I mean, it's great to have a session whom you know, but if you're a person who's not probably very well known and you have a speaking slot, you don't know how many people are going to attend that either.
Got it.
So that's my perspective. The third is, I've also seen a lot of companies and agencies in particular coming beyond just being a product startup owner. They're like either a services or an agency trying to come in. It's good for them in some sense, and it's bad. Like if you belong to the ecosystem, it's great. But if you belong to a different partnerish kind of ecosystem, I don't think you'll get anything out of this.
Got it.
Like if you're a technical partner, implementation partner, I don't think there's much for you in this.
I'll add a couple of things, Ramesh. I think one thing I found, this is just my personal take on that. I mean, some of the sessions were not so, I would say, critical in that sense. People like, startup founders are not showing up here anymore to really attend these events, because most of the things are also available in an easier the form factor, like the podcast or other ways to figure it out. So I think startup founders who wanted to network, and if it is a very early stage, SaaStr is the best place to find the early adopters. You will find a lot of people, I mean, we met a bunch of them, very early adopter. They're open to basically trying the product, right? I think that's an amazing setup.
That's a great point. So if you're just starting up and just have some kind of a prototype and you want to test it with the base and with the geography you want to be a part of, I think SaaStr is a great place. You get amazing design partners who probably you can get conversations, if not even
at least feedback. But I mean, the downside is that you cannot find any persona matching here. If you're looking for a RevOps person and you're building a product for RevOps, I don't think you can find anybody like that. Or if you're looking to find somebody who's a VP of marketing or demand gen, you may not find anybody here. So which means that very early stage for startups, founders want to get the early adopters. Typically, it should be the founders
a great point
who can give the feedback. You should be here. Second, for larger companies, I mean, you said about companies with, let's say, 10 million, 20 million, you should basically make sure that you have a startup program before you even show up here, right?
We'll get to that point. I think that's a great point. I think I would and I'm just going to change over to the questioning person.
But I'm just saying, in general, I'm just saying people with, larger companies set up should come here if they have startup friendly. If you want to catch them early, even though you're a large company, you've seen that from the HubSpot and the customer that, IO and all of these guys, they've basically been here, show up here, Intercom, a good example. We did see them deal.
So can I ask you this question, Sri? The last time you were probably here, maybe 3-4 years back at SaaStr, did you see any of the big companies actually sponsor, let's say maybe a HubSpot or a Salesforce or anyone else sponsoring a booth and being a part of it to drive demand?
I think have
you always seen only startups?
It's always been startup ecosystem, I would say. I think 3 years back when I was here, 3-4 years back when I was here, I mean, I never seen any HubSpot or SaaStr. I think HubSpot maybe stopped coming here the moment their inbound start picking up. There's also pretty closely running it early next week, right? Busy setting up their own event.
Right.
Larger setup don't show up here typically, right? But I always seen Intercom, companies like larger, but who don't they have their own larger startup ecosystem conferences. They definitely sponsor the event. But there's a lot of difference, Ramesh. In fact, I was talking to a few people who've been here last year. We were here last year. We were not here last year. But they said the number of crowd is lesser here because there are few other startup events happening within the valley.
You have a choice to make.
There are few. I think we spoke about the SaaS Open or a couple of other things happening across the board here, which means that it's becoming more niche, maybe that's what is happening. But there's a lot of changes, right, from what it used to be to what it is today. For example, 4 or 5 years back, I had been sitting in these events, and I was basically a practitioner at that time. I was not a startup founder. So when you are coming here from being part of a larger company, operator or startup, a practitioner from a larger company, you tend to go sit in these conversations which are happening, these sessions, and you want to learn something what's happening.
Correct.
But the moment you become a startup founder, your objective is to basically either to find an early adopter or understand a partner. You can find somebody who can partner with you. Networking is the key aspect here. Just to summarize on what we've been talking, right? If your objective is to network and meet new startup founders, I think you should invest on SaaStr.
Right. So that's the point.
That's the point. And the second thing, we also learn few things down the line. Whether you're a sponsor or you just people coming and showing up here, you need to have some assets like printing your brochures.
Oh, that's a big mistake that
right?
we did.
We didn't have it. We had to run through last couple of days, find something, and it did work in the end. But just one word of I would say learning from our side, be prepared to have a bunch of brochures because people want to know more, and there's like so much of overwhelming information.
I think the fastest way is to just show them what you're talking about, right? It's very hard to articulate. Whereas showing is much easier.
Yeah, and when you do something new, like what you're doing in Highperformr, Ramesh, I think where you're saying that, hey, I'm going to treat your social like your website to generate leads. I think some of these things are not out there. You cannot say we are doing something like X and Y and Z.
It's very hard. Yeah.
The moment that's the case, I think it's better to have a form factor like an iPad, show some videos or show some.
Yeah, that was a miss from our side.
That was one miss. For founders who are coming in next time or going to any other startup event, we would suggest two things. One, get some brochures. People wanted to carry something so that when they go back home, they open their bag, they'll see that, hey, you know what? By the way, there is some recall. Second thing, it's easier to communicate with videos and screenshots, even if you're doing one-on-one.
I actually have a very, very, primitive way that is come back to me. I really prefer the physical business cards.
Okay.
Versus just scanning. You scan, you turn it around, it's not scanning, and then you blame it on the network. It becomes it takes a lot of time. Whereas business card is super easy. I know, but Ramesh,
I just use only one business card.
I use quite a few. It's probably the persona as well.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even bother to
even. With that, a lot of learnings. Anyway. So if you're a startup founder, from 0 to 1,
networking
is a great place.
If networking is your intent,
you should be part of it.
You should show up at SaaStr.
All right.
Thank you guys. Have a great week ahead.
Okay, welcome back. This is the second question that we have on if you are a startup founder. I've attended SaaStr. It's been great for me. But someone who's probably attending SaaStr probably the second or third time has come up from being an operator or practitioner to now attending SaaStr as a founder, startup founder. I want to ask Sri one big question. Sri, from what has happened 3 years back, or maybe 4 years back, I don't know what the case is, to right now, what are the changes that you see when you get into a event like SaaStr? What has changed? Is there any innovation at all? Is there from a speaker slot? Do you see anything different? How have you seen 4 years before and after right now?
I think as a feeling, it's very different, Ramesh. I mean, I think being a founder and showing up in SaaStr versus being part of a larger setup and being a practitioner showing up is totally different. Few changes from the past to now, I think the attendees count, I felt personally, maybe I don't have the exact numbers though. I feel the number of participants were much lesser, which is good in few sense, right? But starking difference, if you look at it, the trend in the market is very clear. Every person, every booth, every sponsor, every attendees, every founder had an AI tag. Whether you like it or not like it, they had it, right? Number one. If what they do with, how they help, is all very relevant to that particular founder and the startup, right? That's the number one.
Okay.
Number two, I would say, another thing which really hit me is that there is a kind of a change in how existing companies also looking at their product. For example, one big change is that pricing models are changing. Right?
Okay.
I met a bunch of established companies. Right. I can give an example of Intercom. Right. it's very clear that they're moving away from an agent-based or seat-based licensing to a usage-based licensing, right? It looks like there is the whole fatigue around having these multiple subscriptions is real.
Okay.
And I'm sure
or agent-based pricing.
Agent-based pricing where it's variable, the budgeting is not a constant. You always need to basically be able to be wondering whether what is your usage next year or next month versus I only pay when I use, right? So I think the subscription fatigue is real. We spoke about a year back, and I can see companies changing their model, and going into a model like the AWS or GCP where you use, so you pay.
You pay for what you use.
You pay for what you use. That's a big change, which means that there is a lot of AI coming in. Maybe it's because of the impact of AI as well.
Perhaps, yeah.
There is a change in the subscription model. Most likely 3 to 5 years from now, I don't even know the seat-based licensing even makes sense, right? Number 2.
Okay.
Number 3, is that there's a lot of importance for integrations. I've been in SaaStr before 3-4 years back. I have not seen this many number of vendors or companies who are actually selling integration platforms, iPaaS platforms, the no-code platform to build integration for a SaaS company, right? And for even enterprises, right?
Why do you think that's happening?
With the number of SaaS tools business started using, Ramesh, right? There is like the silo of data, right? If you look at even the sales stack or marketing stack, which we can talk about, each company is having minimum 5 to 10 SaaS products in their sales and marketing stack.
Right.
Everybody we spoke already is having like 5 to 10, and they want to use more, because if you can help them be more productive, the sales and marketing people, or if you can help them generate more revenue, the sales leader, the marketing leader is willing to pay more to get one more product and add them to the stack. So what it means is that the importance for integrating between these tools is becoming super important. Otherwise, the product can even not exist.
Correct.
Right? For example,
the
Highperformr
we wouldn't exist without
Highperformr as a product cannot exist without a CRM and the sales engagement tools like Salesloft or Outreach or Instantly.
But you need to tie them all,
how
bring
do
them
you
together.
do it? So SaaS companies, SaaS founders are coming up with this, the iPaaS platform, which typically used to be built by, the SaaS companies themselves, because they had very finite integration. And integration would take a long haul of 3 years, 5 years. As they establish, as they go hit the larger companies, they would build it. But today, integration is the number one requirement for any SaaS company, and it has to be there from day one.
That's a very interesting point that you're making, right? One is, as drab or as a boring product as a category, it may seem, iPaaS, right? There's no innovation in it. You're just bringing
data together.
Correct. But at the same time, the volume of integration that is needed to ensure that every SaaS product out there is successful is large. Is typically very heavily dependent on integrations.
It also takes time to build an iPaaS platform, right? It takes time to be able to mature it, because you do data sync. There are issues when you sync data, migration happens.
Yeah.
So hence, offering iPaaS as a service is very relevant, and that's the reason that
very interesting observation there. So yes, I did see a lot of them. We saw Workado, we saw Prismatic. There's a new kid on the block, Unify Apps. They had a
no-code platform as well, right?
And I don't recollect the other names, but these were the top 3 or 4.
There were 4 or 5. In fact, there are a few of them didn't even have booth. I met one or two startup founders who are actually doing pretty similar things.
Interesting.
Right? So that place is becoming crowded, and it is very evident on the SaaStr, right? So I would say these are the 3 things which I noticed, right? Where there is a significant change. AI has become the .com type thing now, right? Whatever was happening in the .com is happening in AI. Subscription-based fatigue is real, and there is a change in the way companies are going to do the modeling on the pricing, right? Number 4 is integration is becoming just not a feature, but it's becoming a platform play as well. Of course, MuleSoft, Salesforce integration probably was a trigger.
Makes absolute sense. Yeah.
Now, the same product is getting available for all the SaaS companies in SMB, right? That is number 3.
Yeah.
Right?
Did you see any innovative way of bringing people to the booth? Because I've seen Turkish ice creams or doing anything there, but I didn't find anything unique this time. I mean, there were giveaways and all of that, but do you think? Do you think the investment on giveaways have kind of come down? Someone like an IBM, thanks to IBM, we had a good.
No, I think it's come down drastically. I mean, I can see the booth. In the past, these setups for sponsors would be extravagant, right? It would be like very, very, very. They would invest a lot on it, right? Typically, being an AI, I would say I have not seen any bots there. typically these things were even there like 5-10 years
Correct,
back.
correct.
Right? So the investment, they are very frugal. All the sponsors were running it frugal, which is a great thing.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And they were giving ice creams and juices and maybe coconut water, but nothing fancy, nothing expensive.
Nothing fancy.
But I like one did catch my eyes, which where they gave a cap for every LinkedIn follower.
What are you saying? Really?
That was fun. I did get one, but there are, I think
you got a cap for
you got a nice cap for following somebody on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Right, which was fun. So, but that's being said, I mean, in general, there is sensitivity in how much you invest on these events. Right.
Do you think it will be different from a Dreamforce where you see more mature companies?
I think Dreamforce is more enterprise.
Right.
The
giveaways will be more.
The giveaways will be more, and you're talking. I don't know about the giveaways, but I'm expecting the whole setup to be much larger.
All right.
Right. In that sense.
So watch out for us. We're going to cover Dreamforce as well on what we see and what we've been doing.
Correct. The one another big learning, at least my observation from the SaaStr, is that it's more an ecosystem play. And you cannot come to SaaStr to expecting that you'll build a pipeline, right? So that's one important aspect. I think you just spoke about that, Ramesh, right? But I just want to restate that because if you're looking at SaaStr for your demand gen, I don't think that's not the way to really pursue it. It's more in terms of conversation and networking. I think we would have probably met like few hundreds founders who would maybe recall us as they grow, right? And we could connect. And
as we grow as well, yeah.
That's how we grow as well. I would say that's the biggest benefit. And that remained constant. I think SaaStr, to its essence, is an ecosystem play, and it's been trying to figure out this. Thanks to Jason.
Absolutely, thanks to Jason.
I mean, I think that DNA has been, I would say, well kept. I mean, that's the one constant from what I've seen from the past and now.
Great insights. I think those 4 points very relevant. Big changes in the way the ecosystem is also changing. How SaaS is now being perceived.
Absolutely.
And bringing all of them together.
Ramesh, I saw you in the end, sitting in a corner, having a laptop. You found some growth hack. Right?
That was an interesting piece.
And I mean, I want to talk about that aspect where you just ended up having a laptop and you had a kind of a small kind of write up on your laptop, right? And I don't know if you have it now, but what is all about that?
Okay.
And you had an interesting message there which said, treat social as your next gen, or what do you say? What was the message?
As your next growth engine.
Growth engine. Why don't we talk about that? What is that? What is the number one growth engine? What is that?
All right. I'll talk to you about the hack. There were a few things in play. Obviously, we couldn't sponsor a booth.
Okay.
Right. So frugality.
Because you were late, or you didn't have the budget, or I think you thought it was not.
It is expensive.
It's not worthwhile.
Let's face it. It is expensive, and we weren't sure, right?
Okay.
So
you're not sure
truth.
whether you'll get what you want. Okay.
Yeah, it is expensive, right?
Okay.
So we just came as attendees. We were our sponsors, but the moment I walked around, and some of them had these good-looking postcards about what they do.
Yeah.
As much as I tried talking to them about what we do, it's very hard to kind of visualize what we do, right? But imagine if I had an iPad or if I had a postcard to kind of show them what it means, it makes it real, the conversation probably. Yeah. So the next day, we called Harsh and I said, hey dude, we want this to be done.
Okay.
And we got it overnight, but obviously printing takes time.
Yeah.
So by the time we got it printed, we were almost day 3, 12 p.m. We got it and we came back to SaaStr. People were, kind of tired.
Yeah, I think before we go further, I want to just pause and let's talk about the problem there. What was the pain point?
The pain point was...
Why was it even a pain point? Because in the past, I have been in events just talking all through the day, right?
Pain point is
why is
one...
it a problem? Why doesn't it resonate?
Practical. We talked about a very practical problem over here.
Yeah.
Is we are running around all over the place.
Correct.
Right? Trying to talk to people, show them what we do. Mobile phone is probably too small. I should have a tablet. It's very hard to articulate the problem statement you are solving.
Okay.
Right? Highperformr is your, next gen growth engine. Is your number. Turn social into your next growth engine. What I want to say is, whatever the great stuff that you're doing on website in publishing content, do it on social, and we will enable that absolutely easily, and also turn that into a growth engine by getting you more leads. How many of you got to know what I'm talking about? It's hard.
Okay.
As founders, we probably have a vision and we're doing. People are excited. Oh, really? Wow, that's great. Let's meet. But it doesn't show them what you do.
Okay.
We don't have a booth. You don't have a TV to kind of show them what we do. But here is what I did. We got those cards printed. I stuck it on my laptop. I just sat down
in a place
without
with
having
a coffee.
You got us a nice salad. So we sat down and I was working on my laptop. People got intrigued by what we did. It was the fag end of SaaStr. It was day 3.
Yeah, you pretty much picked up.
We had a dozen conversations.
One demo.
And as well. So we literally had people come and ask, hey, that seems interesting. What do you guys do? Turn social into your next growth, and what does it even mean? So in essence, it's not like sorry about the word, cliched message of, we will supercharge your growth. We're just saying, but once we explain that, people were like, wow, shall we go in bed? But that's beside the point. The point that I'm trying to say is when you're going to SaaStr, when you're going to such events, have something which can be a conversation starter without you going to shake hands and say, hey, I am so on, so forth. And it takes time. Let's get straight to the cut.
So that's been the case, right? So that's been the case. But I will, Ramesh, I'll add one point on top of it, right? Unless you're not creative on these events, right? We need to find a way where we are sticky in somebody's mind. If that doesn't happen, if you're not utilizing the time well, that's the most important.
I think that's a very important point.
There's so much of conversation happening. There are hundreds of people happening, right? And if you're a startup founder, you are basically doing a trade-off between doing the build activity back in your office to showing up in these events. We better be creative there. Right? And we just learned it on a hindsight. We just got it in our head only after a couple of days because we were not sure who we want to meet as founders on SaaStr, because a lot of people even had mentioned to us, hey, I don't think you should be, I think spending your time attending these events in SaaStr. You should go to Dreamforce or some other event where you have the target persona coming in, right? So when you make a decision to show up here, you better basically be creative, do something which is sticky, so that when you go back and reach out to them, they could recall.
Absolutely. Right? I think that was a good hack.
It's just a hack, but I just thought, Ramesh,
and it also helps you to sit down
and relax
and get a breather. And you probably the dozen people who came are leads.
No, but it's very important point, Ramesh. A lot of times we miss out these small hacks, which is important, and that makes the event more successful. For example, that 1 hour where Ramesh was just sitting in a corner, having his laptop open, probably actually made this whole event successful for us, because we got a bunch of demos, a dozen of conversations, and some of the people who we met already on the day before came to us again and said, hey, you know what, can you set up a demo on Monday, Tuesday, or the week after? Right?
Actually, a very important point that Sri said. One of them who even came said, hey, we are trying to build something similar to yours, but we are very inspired. So
correct. So that's what happened. So I thought we'll talk about that briefly. Next time when you show up in these events, make sure that you stand out and use LinkedIn.
Thank you very much. And with that, thanks a lot for watching us as well. We'll come back with what's the latest on Dreamforce as well.
Right. Thank you. Thanks all.